It's that time of the year for our annual Mazda MX-5 review, and not for any good reason, except Miata is always the answer. Just kidding. For 2022, there is one subtle difference, and it's for drivers like you and me, and on top of that, it's very much a Mazda thing. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Max, racing driver, lover of driving fast, fun things, and on this channel you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now in 2022, there's probably no good reason to revisit this MX-5. We've driven a bunch of them since the ND2 update, and they're fantastic. There is one little update, which we will talk about in a little bit. It's a very cool, very subtle thing, and it works in all the right ways for drivers like us. But before we get into that, let's have a look at the basics of this MX-5 in a little more depth. Mechanically, not much has changed, and that update that I mentioned, well, it's effective and it doesn't add a single gram of weight to this MX-5, which is absolutely true to the MX-5 ethos. Powering the 22 MX-5 is still the 2-liter Skyactiv G 4-cylinder. It makes 181 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, 151 pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM, 6-speed manual transmission. Of course, you can get an automatic, but why would you? This one, being effectively a club or a GSP, has the limited slip diff. The electrically assisted rack and pinion power steering is still here. Suspension's based around double wishbones at the front, multi-link at the rear. This one has the Bilsteins, of course. There are 4-wheel disc brakes with single piston calipers all around. Wheels and tires are 17s, as you know, and curb weight of this thing is absolutely crazy town. It's 2,350 pounds. That is just remarkable for 2022. From a driver's perspective, this cockpit is just about perfection. I have very few complaints. This is all about driving enjoyment and being effective as a pilot when you're behind the wheel. Everything is laid out perfectly for you as the driver. Since the update a couple of years ago, there's now that tilting and telescoping steering column. There's not a lot of adjustment here, but a little bit more than before. So really can't complain about that, but I'd like a little bit more adjustment. These seats are nearly perfection. They are cloth. It's exactly what I want in a summer roadster like this. They're absolutely perfect. I don't want leather. These are just fantastic. Love the shape and the size of the steering wheel. The pedals are laid out perfectly. Heel and toe is no problem whatsoever, and we can always talk about that, and there's always our ultimate guide to heel and toe on the channel. Maybe I'll put a link here and a link below for that, but pedals are laid out perfectly for heel and toe, and the throttle response for heel and toe is absolutely perfect as well. Love the shifter, love the actuation of the shifter. Just everything is laid out perfectly. Very simple, straightforward ergonomics, very easy to deal with. The infotainment system is very much an afterthought for me. I don't mind that it's here, but I'd rather the screen to be gone altogether and get it out of this cockpit. In terms of storage, you know the deal. There's a little bit of storage here and some behind the seats, and that's lockable at least, but you're not going to need much more than that. The trunk can take a couple of carry-ons. That's about it. With respect to visibility, obviously the roof is down. You can see nearly 360 degrees, and there's one advantage to having the roof down, and that is you can hear things as well as see them. In terms of acceleration, well, I don't know what it does 0 to 60 and don't really care. It's not about 0 to 60. It's not about quarter-mile times. It's about driving enjoyment, especially when you've got some curvy roads like we've got here. It's just perfection in that regard. But in terms of acceleration, there's more than enough power. But here's the thing. Because this weighs only 2,300 pounds, you can easily get up to speed, and it transitions, whether you're changing direction or getting on the brakes quickly. This has a completely different set of dynamics than any other sports car, just because it's so light. Like, it's hundreds of pounds lighter than I think its closest competition. So the weight of this MX-5 has a real impact on what you can do with it, and that's what makes it very enjoyable. With the ND2 updates to the engine, it's just a little bit more satisfying to drive, and as we know from talking to our pal Keith Tanner at Flying Miata, all of that additional power and all of that additional torque happens in the right parts of the rev range. So all that power is made up at the top end of the rev range, and it's just got a meteor torque curve now, which makes it just a little bit more enjoyable to drive. And yeah, it's got a 7,500 RPM redline, so if you need to, you can run the engine all the way to 7,500 RPM. As you know, this one does have the limited slip diff. I don't find it that much different from the base car we drove not that long ago, and it has to do with the fact that, again, this is so light and there's not a lot of power that needs to go through the diff, so there's always a lot of traction. And then if you want to slide this thing, you can do that as well. It's very controllable. Advanced driver assist, haha, it doesn't have any of that stuff, and it doesn't have a sport mode button either. Before we get into any kind of discussion about the handling of this MX-5, we have to talk about this Kinematic posture control. It's a new feature for 2022, and kind of like what Mazda does with GVC and GVC Plus in the other Mazdas, it's built into the car. It's kind of an extension of the stability system, that is its foundation. Doesn't add a single gram of weight to the car whatsoever, and it's something that only Mazda would do because they are very much about putting the driver first. This Kinematic posture control takes advantage of the anti-lift suspension geometry that's built into the rear suspension of this MX-5. And what that means is when you apply the brakes fairly hard, there's less of a tendency for it to do this. So that's already built into this car. So this Kinematic posture control takes advantage of that. So let's consider taking a right-hand turn with this Kinematic posture control. So what happens is we turn the wheel, the right side of the car is of course lifting up, but with this Kinematic posture control, what the system does is it actually will actuate the inside rear brake. So it'll actually slow this wheel a bit, which will cause the suspension to draw down a bit. What that does is it allows the MX-5 to corner a little bit flatter than it normally would. So think about this. You're in that right-hand turn, you got a little bit of body roll going on, and then the system very lightly applies this brake and the back end of the car sits down. That's basically how it works. And you can notice that if you're sensitive to it, generally I was feeling it in medium to high speed corners. Low speed corners, I don't think there's that much actuation of the system. Keep in mind the brake system pressure to make that actuation is so light, it's barely a brush of the brake pedal, doesn't slow down the car at all. And on top of that, it actuates, the Kinematic posture control actuates all the way through the corners. So on corner exit, as you're loading up that left side of the car, you're unwinding the wheel, picking up the throttle, it'll continue to just lightly brush this inside rear wheel to keep the attitude of the car a little bit flatter, and it also helps a little bit with traction. If you think when you're in that right-hand corner, that right rear is a little bit unloaded, so a little bit of brake pressure, along with this car's limited slip diff, really helps in terms of maintaining the tire's contact with the asphalt. Keep in mind that it's tied to the stability system so that when that system is off, Kinematic posture control is no longer active. And what could be a situation where you don't want that system active? Well, of course, track days like some of us do. Keep in mind, the system does not interfere at all with the driving experience, and it really enhances it. It's such a subtle intervention. You're gonna be hard pressed to determine whether it's actually working or not. I really had to play with this a lot to understand that kind of actuation. It was very, very subtle, absolutely enhances the driving experience, and of course, like I said, it's only something that Mazda would do. Dynamically, that kinetic posture control does have an effect. There are some occasions where I can actually feel it working, and in other occasions where I'm being more abrupt with my inputs, whether it's my steering, braking, or throttle, it really doesn't intervene. I think it's got a certain window of operation in which it likes to perform, but when it does, it absolutely does work. It does help the car corner a little bit flatter. I'd love to try that in some more controlled conditions, like on a racetrack, but on some of our test route roads, it does work wonderfully. As far as the steering goes, well, you know the drill. Even though it's electrically assisted, there's a reasonable amount of feel that comes through to the steering wheel. A lot of that does come through the chassis as well. Again, because this is 2,300 pounds, you can feel just about everything. That also has to do with the fact that Mazda designed this for an incredible amount of feedback and feel. You really do feel at one with this MX-5, and that's what makes it so enjoyable to drive. Again, relative to the base model, this one has the Bilsteins, and the Bilsteins do a slightly better job in terms of body and wheel control. I don't have an argument there. Are they necessary? No. Are they better? Well, yes, and it is a bit noticeable. There's no question about that, but in terms of the overall balance and how much fun this is throwing it through the corners, well, it's just a blast to drive everywhere. It's small, it's light, it's lithe, it changes direction so easily. It's so responsive to all of your inputs. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you want a little bit more steering input, you want to jump on the brakes, or you're just flinging it through the corners. It does such a wonderful job at all of the fun roadster things that it's supposed to do. Even with the Bilsteins, ride quality is still excellent. I'll take that trade-off and better body and wheel control with these Bilsteins, but there doesn't seem to be any measurable decrease in ride quality or comfort. It just rides very comfortably, and you know, this is something that you can go on a very long distance trip with. What they've done with the MX-5 is they've maintained that wonderful balance where they allow the suspension to work. So there's some suspension travel here, and the suspension calibrations aren't overly stiff, so you do get some body roll, you do get some movement, and again, the suspension is allowed to work here. It's not really buttoned down, it's not a harsh ride, and it doesn't really corner super flat like some higher end sports cars, but that's not the MX-5 ethos. They want the suspension to work. So what that means is you do get a little bit of body roll, you do get a little bit of dive under braking, and a little bit of squat under this modest acceleration, and that's what I want from a roadster like this. I want that movement, because that way I can tell what this MX-5 is doing and how it's responding to my inputs. Overall, it's still got that lovely, delightful balance that all MX-5s seem to possess, except for some of those hard-edge race cars, but that's another story for another day. But as a road car, this MX-5 Roadster is just lovely. It's just beautifully balanced, very much a driver's car, and that's been Mazda's intention from the beginning with the MX-5 and the Miata. It's just an absolute delight to drive, and that kinematic posture control, well, that adds a very subtle, interesting dimension to the dynamics of the MX-5. So how do you spec yours? Well, regular viewers of the show know I have some distinct opinions about this, and that has to do with a lot of things. And some of y'all really like the lightweight BBS wheels and the Recaro seats and the Brembo brakes, and sure, those brakes offer a more positive brake pedal, and regular viewers of the show know I'm a brake pedal feel fetishist, and yes, the BBS wheels, those are lightweight and they let the dampers do a better job, especially controlling wheel motion, and that's very important in a sports car. But do you need all that? Well, it just adds an incremental amount of driving pleasure. I think that the most honest MX-5 is the base model, and from my perspective, base is still ace. And in terms of color choice, this is the only one to get. This paint is beautiful, and it's absolutely perfect on the lines of any MX-5. My verdict? Well, let's start with fuel consumption, because it is 2022 after all, and this is the year of crazy fuel prices. And without even trying, I'm getting 30 miles per gallon, or about 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends. I'm doing that without putting any effort in. I'm driving this like I love it, not like I stole it, and I'm still getting 30 miles per gallon. Absolutely blows my mind. But this is the kind of car in 2022 where you can have your cake and eat it too. And as for a 2022 Mazda MX-5, well, if you're looking for a little roadster, you better buy one before they're outlawed. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2022 Mazda MX-5 for no good reason at all. I hope you liked this episode, and if you did, well, you're not new to YouTube. You know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this video, and as always, sharing is caring. So please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Mazda MX-5s.